You now work in finance.
Yes.
But before, you worked in politics.
Yes. In politics, you're talking to really senior people all day. And in sales, you want to be talking to really senior people all day. You know, up at 6 o'clock in the morning, getting out, smashing leaflets, knocking on doors, talking to the electorate around what matters to them, and then running those campaigns was unbelievable. So I was global number 4 in the company I was in. It was great. And I was a top performing salesperson, and I absolutely loved it. What looked like what should have been a super easy campaign just turned into an absolute mess. Financial services is broad. The most important thing when you're going into these interviews that I have come across is, how do you manage stakeholders? How do you work in an environment that's always changing? I mean, at one point, you know, we were in number 10 and Theresa May is giving a speech and Bill Gates is up on stage and we're in the room. It's one of the things that has stuck with me through my career. What do you focus on? Oh no, shit, we've lost this client, what are we gonna do? On to the next. And what separates a good campaign from a bad campaign? Foresight.
Well, Josh, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no, 100%, happy to.
So, path in life.
Yes.
The podcast is looking at people's paths in life,
Yes.
how they've got to do the job they're doing now,
Yes.
and everything in between.
Superb.
Because at the end of the day, you don't have to be a wealthy person, a business person, a
Yes.
CEO to have a unique perspective that can be shared with others and help them get value from it.
100%.
So Josh, let's start with a very simple question.
Hit me.
Okay, who is Josh?
Oh, Josh is a dad. He is, he's a dad. He's a dad first. He's a husband. He is a professional, and he's actually basically a big child who's accidentally fallen into the world he's in now. I still have a Lego Star Wars collection, so you know, I'm literally a big kid. I'm a kid with an adult's bank account. That's how my wife describes me, and it is absolutely true.
What's the biggest Lego thing you've built?
Oh, do you know what? I think I'm a big Star Wars fan, right? Love Star Wars. I've loved Star Wars since I was 8 years old, and it's apt that we're talking about this first. Of all the things, do you know, it is a Lego. I don't know if have you watched Star Wars?
Oh yeah, my favorite episode is episode 3.
100%, right? Exactly. Episode
Revenge
3.
of the Sith
Unreal.
all the way through.
Absolutely. I've got the best thing, the biggest thing I've built, I think, would be like Darth Vader's castle from Rogue One. And if you're watching this, you should go and buy it. 100%, just go buy it. But I think the best thing is the Venator class Star Destroyer from episode 3 as they're flying in on the first opening scene. Anakin and Obi-Wan flying over, and it looks like something out of a documentary. That ship, chef's kiss. Best thing I've ever seen in my life.
Is that like the triangular ship?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
I think
Massive.
I've seen some pictures. It's massive.
It's huge. It's not the biggest one that Lego have done. It's like one step below, but oh, it is my pride and joy, and it's on my shelf in my house, and I look at it as often as I can.
How long did it take you to build it?
Like 4 hours, which isn't like a super long time. You know, it was a fast get in. You know, I was so excited because I got it for Christmas. My wife, Molly, she got it for me, and then we were going away for Christmas, and so I had to wait, I think, like a week before I could build it. And that week was the longest week of my life. I was looking at like the instructions online. And it's such a nerdy thing, but I think it was the best Christmas present she's ever got me, hands down.
Nice one, yeah. When I was a kid, I used to love building Lego as well.
Superb.
Yeah.
And do you know what? As an adult, as I'm like 28 years old, I would still go out by choice, and I will in August go out by choice, and I will buy another Lego set, probably one of the new ones.
Nice one.
This is becoming an advert for Lego.
Honestly, yeah. Well, my flatmate's friend, he works at Lego now.
Oh, what?
Yeah, and my
That is
flatmate,
so
he now
cool.
gets like so many Lego sets.
Can we
Can we get him in?
introduction
Yeah,
going?
absolutely, yeah.
If Lego are looking for people to review sets, I'm available.
Josh is available, nice.
100%.
So you've got a kid.
Yes.
How old are you, Josh?
I am 20 years old.
20, sorry, say it again?
28 years old.
28 years old, nice.
Yes, 100%. Ben was born 3 months ago, and I can't get over how much he has changed in 3 months, going from a baby who, you know, can barely, you know, basically can just like lay there and cry, to what he is now, where, you know, he's wriggling, he's holding his head up, he plays with teddy bears, and you know, I think my son is one of, you know, he's the greatest human being I've ever met, obviously outside of my wife, who is 100% number one. But the fact that, you know, I'm watching this little person just develop, it's the best feeling in the world, the best feeling in the world.
Congratulations, and
Thank you very much.
for a 28-year-old to have a kid this age, that's great. That's great. It's good. I
100%,
congratulate. I congratulate you. It's quite cool. So before you got engaged,
Yes.
you got married, before you had a kid,
Yes.
talk to me about your first jobs.
Sure. So my career started really when I was 16 years old. So I was a fire service cadet, and it was amazing because you train as a cadet in the fire service basically to serve the public, right? And you are so aware that the work you're doing may well put you, well, it will put you in harm's way at some stage in your career, and you're totally fine about that. And I went through my training, and I was on the cusp of going in for full basic training and officer training when I basically got tapped on the shoulder by a colleague who said, "No, do you know, actually, I think you'd be really, really good representing the fire service, the local government." And I'm like, you know, I'm 18. I'm like, well, I don't really know about anything about that. And so I'm 18 years old, and I roll up to my first a young council meeting, and I have no idea what I am doing. And I just start advocating for the fire service. I start meeting councillors, and I get picked up by Welsh Government. They had something coming through called the Future Generations Act, and there was a charity within Wales that was doing a lot of work with Welsh Government on this. And my first like real exposure to corporate strategic work was working with a fantastic development officer named Chris, and he basically took me through what can only be described an intensive training course in public affairs. You know, and all of a sudden this 18-year-old kid who had very little experience practically, you know, was showing up to ministerial meetings with members of the Welsh Parliament, and that was my first real job. You know, I guess, well, my first exposure to the workplace, and then at the same time, because a lot of it was voluntary and was participation based, I was working in a pub to pay the bills whilst doing all of this. So it was a real blend of, yes, you know, I would 9 o'clock in the morning, I'd get up, go into Cardiff Bay, work alongside a ministerial directive, and then I would come home around 3, change, I'd go work in a pub, just, you know, and it was complete like melding of the worlds, because a lot of the participatory work, it is voluntary and it is fantastic exposure, but it's unpaid work, and that was unreal. But and that's not a bad thing either. I think, you know, it taught me a lot about that world, and I wouldn't have been able to go on and do the things that I have done had I not had that exposure. So the fact that an 18-year-old could get involved with, you know, Welsh government ministers, and even and, you know, going up to Parliament for the first time and experiencing that at such a young age was unbelievable, and it set me up for success. But yeah, I did a whole variety of things right at the beginning.
Okay, and for people listening, Josh, you now work in finance.
Yes.
But before you worked in politics.
Yes.
So how did that how did that volunteering
Yes.
help you get into volunteering with like the ministers
Yes.
and everything? How did that help you get into politics?
Do you know, it was sheer exposure to that world. And, you know, I mean, I don't have a political background. I mean, you know, I was in the fire service, for crying out loud, and I mean, I did put out a lot of fires when I was in politics, but it's a very, very different ethos when you're going from a uniformed organisation that is built on respect for your colleagues and trust, to the world of politics, which is often very murky and very, very Machiavellian. It's very, very much a case of, well, actually, somebody coming in, you would pick up on people who were really, really there to do a fantastic public service, but also people who were there actually to further their own career. And there was, there's nothing inherently wrong with furthering your own career, but at the same time, remembering the reason why you're there and remembering the reason what put you into the field. And in some ways, that was really surprising. The thing that I guess launched me when I was 19, I stood for election in Chepstow. I lost by about 20 votes. I was up against the Labour leader. I think it was something like 20, maybe been a bit more. I haven't looked at those numbers in a long time. I lost by about 20 votes in an area where my party had never won before, really, and it would have been a real uphill climb. And then I basically just got so involved with running campaigns, and as well as doing all of this within a political party, actually my stuff within public affairs was taking off. So I was tapped on the shoulder to represent Wales at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, and that was happening alongside the Commonwealth Youth Forum. And so all of these things, I mean, at one point, we were in number 10 and Theresa May is giving a speech and Bill Gates is up on stage and we're in the room. And so to be, 21 years old and running campaigns and doing university and being in this room with Bill Gates just sat over there was crazy, absolutely crazy. And it launched something really fascinating. We could spend so much time just on the politics, but I think what got me into it was coming back to the original thing. I knew we would go off on tangents like this. Was just I loved the idea of being on campaign. It was, I think some people, they lose energy when they're on a campaign. For me, it's like rocket fuel. I absolutely loved it. Up at 6 o'clock in the morning, getting out, smashing leaflets, knocking on doors, talking to the electorate around what matters to them, and then running those campaigns was unbelievable.
So what else were you doing? So you said a couple of things. You were waking up at 6, leaflets, talking with the electorate. Yes. What else were you doing? So what's a day-to-day campaign, running a campaign looking like?
It is a major blend of groundwork and, I guess, to use a military metaphor, there's the groundwork that happens where you're boots on the ground, you're talking to the electorate, you're finding out what their issues are, and you're trying to really learn the area that you're campaigning in. So if you take Chepstow as an example, one of the things I did is I went to like 4 different pubs and I just sat in that pub and I just talked to some of the patrons and said, okay, what are the things you're dealing with? That's before we even start the actual campaign piece, because then you take that information, you go away, and it's almost like a dip check of, okay, this area here, the data might tell us that it's an incredibly affluent area, but actually let's take a look. Let's see what people are actually feeling. You look at the tax code and it might be C2. Are people feeling well off? Is there a high rate of entrepreneurs in that area? What messaging is going to land with those people? So you kind of you've got to see the area to visualize it, to understand what it is that you're going into. Then you'd go away and you would think about, okay, now that we understand who we're talking to, what are some of the platforms that are going to align with these people? Is it tax reform? Is it foreign policy? Or one of the things that is always really key, and some of the things that I think we forget is it local services? And understanding that those people in this area really cared about those issues, and understanding just where the discontent was, if there was any, or where they wanted improvements was absolutely key. Once you've actually built your platform, then you've actually got to roll out the campaign and begin that ground. I guess the second operation in a way, where you're going in, you're going, right, okay, now we know this area, now we can actually start talking to these people and putting forward our message, promoting our candidate, and making sure that the candidate is briefed on what the message is. If you had a good candidate, then that candidate would know. Sometimes, I think sometimes the caliber of candidate would differ, because some people would be seasoned and experienced campaigners, and they would know what they needed to do and how they would win that area. Some candidates are completely outside of political circles, right? And that is not a bad thing, by the way, for your listeners. I think everyone can get involved in politics, certainly at a particular level. But because there is a way of winning elections, it's how we get this fantastic accountant, fire service person briefed in. And that's something I had to learn, because, as I say, my background was not extensively political. My background is very, very much coming into this from the outside and having a real good go.
How many campaigns have you been part of?
Too many to even think of. I think all across Wales I was involved in campaigns, maybe one or two leadership campaigns. We can talk about that later maybe. And it was funny, because not only was I involved in the political grassroots campaigns, I was also involved in campaigns of state. So to give you guys an example, when I went to Chohan, which is Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, and when you go to any diplomatic meeting, you go with a set of objectives you want to achieve. And those conversations can really range from, we need to engage X country around X issue, or actually we need to have a real open dialogue with X organization around how we can partner to do Y. And that in itself is a form of campaign. Now, it's not the same, because you have, in a lot of ways, less time to prepare, and you won't know, I guess, the groundwork as well. But you are still very much promoting the national interest of that time. And I mean, it's very, very much a case of, okay, we have an objective, we know what we need to achieve, we need to talk to X, let's make sure that gets done. And actually, sometimes they were the harder campaigns, because as much as I would have an objective when I would go to a diplomatic meeting, or when me and my team would go, actually, so do other countries coming to those meetings. So it's very, very much a case of, how can we work together? And politics is really funny, and it's interesting with characters like Trump in the White House. Trump runs the White House like a business. And when you're running a business, actually, say you're a tech company and you're selling an AI solution, well, I know, Luca, that I can go talk to any other AI company in the world, and that they could potentially provide the service that you could provide. But if I was talking to India around trade, there is no India number two. I can't go talk to an India just out of nowhere. There might be a similar economy, but actually, in terms of the grand scheme of things, the 1 billion people that India has access to and the trade that could be done there, I can't do that with another country. So it's in my best interests to keep that relationship really good. And so it's a different kind of campaign, but it's very, very much the same principle. We have a mission, we have an objective, how can we achieve it?
What separates a good campaign from a bad campaign in terms of running them?
Winning. No, I think, it's a fantastic question. I think about a lot about the 2017 general election, and it was a campaign I was involved with, certainly on a ground level and in quite a few different constituencies. And on paper, I remember some strategy meetings really early on in the election, and it was, we went into the election and we thought, okay, cool, we are 15 points ahead in the polls. We are smashing it right now in terms of our digital engagement, or at least we thought we were, and we have a really popular candidate to be Prime Minister in Theresa May. Cool. So we're going to pick up constituency seats that we haven't had before. We're going to increase our representation in Parliament. Theresa's going to have an enlarged majority. This campaign is going to be super easy. Textbook. It was told to me in a meeting, and I can't remember how many weeks we had. It may have been 8 weeks because I know that the election was announced during the local elections that I stood in. And I remember being sat across from a member of the Welsh Assembly, and they said to me, do you know what? This is going to be easy. It's going to be a cakewalk. And that election was anything but a cakewalk. We returned to Parliament with a reduced, we didn't even have a majority. We had less Conservative MPs than we started with. We lost a handful of seats. We lost Bath, where we are now. We lost that to the Liberal Democrats. And honestly, Jeremy Corbyn almost became our Prime Minister. Now, forget your view on politics for a minute. Forget your view on who you think should be Prime Minister. That is irrelevant. What was relevant, though, was the campaign that we ran. What looked like what should have been a super easy campaign just turned into an absolute mess. And it was everything from the announcement of the manifesto to the just a whole host of different things. There was, I think at one point, there was ministers didn't know where they were going. Activists would show up to kind of, go out, have the photo ops, be seen with ministers, knock on doors, that kind of thing. Ministers weren't showing up. And it was just a complete mess. And what should have been a cakewalk just became a nightmare. And I think the key word there is what makes a good campaign and what separates a good campaign from a bad campaign. Just foresight. That's what it is. When I think about that election and I think about like fox hunting, which was in the manifesto, let's have an open vote on fox hunting or whatever it was. Or when we talked about reforms to social care, you're 15 points ahead in the polls. You don't need to be talking about these issues. Everyone knew that election was going to be based around Brexit, was going to be based around competencies of who should be Prime Minister, Theresa May or Corbyn. People were talking about national security. Corbyn's record on national security is very, very open. And there was a lot of really good dialogue around that. And you could have fought on those issues and won that majority. And instead, the campaign just went in a totally different direction, which just was not required. And yeah, foresight. Planning.
So say you're going to return to, let's play a game here. So say you're going to return to a campaign in politics in a couple of years.
Yes.
If you were in charge of it,
yes,
what are 3 things you would do to make it better if it's in a mess?
Oh, understand how we got to where we were. What I find, and lots of people like to say, when it's campaigns, it doesn't matter where you are in your campaign, they like to say the campaign manager is at fault. And I'd say, well, okay, campaign manager maybe could be at fault. But actually, the campaign managers that I have met are some of the most hardworking people, that are attached to a campaign. And I think campaigns really do, you pour your heart and soul into those things. And I think, I would want to understand what the vision for the campaign is, okay? What is the key messages that you want, whether it doesn't matter whether it's marketing, advertising, politics, strip all that away. What's the message? The key message. The second thing I would want to understand is what technology are we using to make this easier for people to engage with us as a firm or a political party or whatever. I mean, and all you have to do is open Twitter or Instagram and look at the absolute flood of AI-generated content that just seems to be, it is for me certainly hyper-targeted almost. The amount of ads I've scrolled through, countries as a spirit animal, I'm pretty sure that's like, that's like my 80% of my algorithm. So how are we using AI to target people that need to receive our messaging, or that our messaging would impact the most? And the third thing is, how true are we staying to the main mission of the campaign? And using 2017 as an example, the main mission of that campaign was not to talk about fox hunting, was not to talk about social care, was not to talk about any of those things. The main mission of that campaign was to re-elect Theresa May with an increased majority. And for some reason, that mission got lost in the weeds, the fields of wheat, as was said so many times after. I mean, that literally, that rerun plays in my head at night sometimes. So yeah, understanding who's on the campaign, how we're using tech to better the campaign, staying true to the mission.
3 really good things. And I'm actually quite curious about this because you've got a campaign manager.
Yes.
And you say they are very hardworking.
Yes.
And indeed they are.
Yes.
Because if you aren't, you wouldn't be in that position, right?
100%.
Sometimes you hear people talking about, well, you're the leader of that group. The buck stops with you.
100%.
the buck stops with the campaign manager.
Yep. and do you know what? It's in one sense that is true, but and I think about the last general election that we've just had, and I'm not sure who was campaign managing that one. I haven't been in politics for some time, been in financial services, but I just think you can have the best campaign manager from the best FTSE firm coming in to consult, but if you're 25 points behind in the polls or whatever it was, and if you've been in government for 14 years, which is, I mean, half the time, it's longer than half the time I've been alive, you're probably going to lose. And you could say, well, the buck stops with the campaign manager, but being reasonable, I think circumstances are really, really tough for these guys. And we'll talk about business development and markets and how the market feels at the moment, I'm sure. But I think you could be the most phenomenal campaign manager, but if the campaign that you're trying to push over the line is so far behind, you'd have to pull off a miracle to win that. And Rishi, he would have had to pull off a miracle to win the last election. And yeah, it's really hard.
How was it like working in number 10?
Do you know, the meetings that I rolled up to in number 10 were always amazing. And it's like, again, it's this moment of euphoria, right? I'm not someone who's got a political background. I'm not someone who has, it's not, I'm a fish out of water because I haven't come from this space. And so to arrive at such an incredible place and to have the opportunity to just be there, for me I was ecstatic. In terms of the atmosphere of the place, the buzz is unbelievable. Think of, in America you've got the White House, okay, which is almost a property built for government. And then you've got the Capitol over here, and then you've got, the Vice President and the President and all of their staff in one place. It's like all of that work is happening in a terraced house. And it's amazing because obviously you've got the Prime Minister that works there, you've got the Cabinet Office that's within number 10, and it's like I would describe it as a nexus point of information. The amount of stuff that flows through the building is unbelievable, and you get that feeling as soon as you walk through the door, and it's a feeling of just pride. I remember when I had my first photograph taken outside of the door of number 10, and it was, again, I must have been 21, 22, and what an unbelievable feeling. What an unbelievable feeling to be stood there, and Boris was foreign secretary at the time, and he just strolls in and he's just there, and you're like, oh sugar, that's the foreign secretary. It was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable.
What can you talk about when it comes to number 10?
Very little.
Very little. That's
no,
okay.
To be fair, I think what I would describe number 10 as is, it's almost like I know people who have worked so hard in number 10, they have slept in the building. And it's because I talk about mission a lot, because mission is something that I really align with. Whenever I go into a new firm or whenever I go into a new job, I want to know what's the mission, what's the objective, how are we helping people? And you will not find, I don't think, regardless of colour, of political party colour, regardless of position, regardless of whether you're a political staffer, a special advisor, or a civil servant, you will not find a group of more hard-working people than you will in number 10, because every day is different, and every single person in that environment, one day if you're working as, say, communications manager for X minister, you'll be in number 10. The next day you're catching a flight to go to Hungary for a NATO summit. The next week you're flying back, and actually the Prime Minister's launching something new on their legislative agenda. And that could be on manufacturing. So you're flying off to maybe Bridgend to the Ford plant, or actually you're in another parliament. Britain is really interesting, where you have the devolved administration in Northern Ireland, and then you have two parliaments in in England and Wales and in Westminster. So actually, you could be meeting with another head of a devolved nation in the Union, and you have no idea how your day is going to play out. Because as much as the diary could be set, boom, national crisis happens somewhere else. There's been a ballistic missile fired from Iran into Israel, and all of a sudden, the diary is just gone to shit, and all of a sudden you're being pulled from pillar to post to try to get the messaging right. And I would describe the people who work there as some of the most hardworking people I've ever known. It's an amazing place to just be there and to see all that happening and to be involved. I mean, politics is such a tough industry. There is no other industry that I know of that after you've passed your probation period in whatever it is now, 3-6 months, every 4 years, you have to go back to all of your stakeholders, not just your manager, but all of your stakeholders, and go, this is what we've done, this is what we'd like to do next, could you please consider letting us carry on? People compare it to private equity. Well, actually, it's a lot easier to work in private equity in a private equity-backed firm than it would be to be, say, on the Prime Minister's staff. And I think, it's an amazing industry.
Hard work.
Yes.
Hard work symbolizes number 10 and politics.
Yes.
For someone who wants to go into politics, for someone who wants to run a campaign, for someone
Yes.
who wants to maybe work in parliament,
Yes.
what are some skills or traits that they would need to have to get there?
Radical self-belief. No, that's not fair. I think communication is key. On a daily basis, you could be dealing with, say you're working for a constituency MP, you could be dealing with casework that's related to the constituency. You could then be dealing with an unbelievable situation that's just risen up somewhere in, say, Africa, and you have a constituent out there and they're trying to get in touch with you. I know of cases where constituency staff, again, sleeping on the floor of the office. So being able to communicate not just with the MP that you're supporting, but with those constituents that are out there who really need your help. So communication, key. The next thing is an absolute desire to help people. And the reason why that's key is because there are going to be days, as there were when I was there, where actually you don't feel very political. Actually you feel more like a hotline, like a support hotline, right? Because you have constituents calling in and asking you questions that actually, if you're a staffer and you're fairly new, you might not have the answer to. So you're really, really trying to overperform, I guess. You're trying to figure out what a house of multiple occupancy is because you haven't got a clue. So a desire to help people and to do a really good job is key. And then also, I think it helps to have an interest in politics. I don't think it's a necessity. I know people who've worked in politics and have no interest in the parliamentary procedural systems. I didn't. I had no interest at all. But just having an interest in how it all works and how it comes together, and if your MP is trying to put a bill on the floor, how you can support. And I think the grassroots is really good at that. Really, really good at that. At being able to engage people who, well, it doesn't matter whether it's the Labour Party or the Conservative Party or Liberal Democrats or frankly Reform, because all of those parties will have people who want to do really good work and just help people. And that's I think is the foundation of it.
Communication, desire to help people, and finally some sort of interest in politics is always appreciated.
I would say so, yeah, 100%. It's like not required, but will be helpful if you're ever called into committee and oh my gosh, committee can be absolute shit. I feel sorry for any political staffer that's got to go through committee.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you don't have the interest, then you're going to be sat down. You're going to be thinking, what am I doing here?
100%.
So I bet you've met a lot of people in politics.
A lot of people.
And you've met some wealthy people, some very powerful people sometimes.
Sure.
What are some traits or patterns that you've seen them do that might help you in your life?
I think one of the first things that I remember was, I won't say their name, but they were a incredibly they were a CEO of a very, very large tech firm, and I think some people think that to get ahead, you need to be the loudest person in the room, okay? And there's something you come across a lot in business, especially in business development. And I remember looking at this tech founder, and he would walk into a room really quietly, get his coffee. He wouldn't sit at the front of the stage necessarily. He was totally comfortable in his environment, and he didn't feel the need to project, or he didn't feel the need to overcompensate his anxieties with movement, or with trying to show that he had mastered his field. And I think the conclusion I came to is that he was the epitome of walk really softly but know your shit. And I think in our day-to-day world now, we see people who like to be really loud, who like to be really out there, and that's fine, by the way. Those people are fantastic, I'm sure. But nothing had struck me more than watching this guy come in, get his coffee quietly, calm, cool, collected, and every fibre of my being was like, I would love to be like that when I'm a professional. And I haven't got there just yet. I think we're all still learning, but because I'm an energetic person, so that's just me. But I would love nothing more than to carry that aura of calm, cool, collected, not a problem, not worried. I think that'd be amazing.
Are you trying to do it actively, like right now in your life?
Yeah, I think so. I think I look at the way that I've had the privilege, and it is a privilege, of working with some incredibly senior people, from S&P 500 execs to prime ministers, to Prince Harry rolling up to a meeting I was in. Right, it's been amazing. But the thing that has always struck me around those people is how down to earth they are, and how knowledgeable they are on their subject matter. And also, a trait that I have noticed with those people is they don't pretend they know everything. And we've all had it with colleagues and with peers, where you go into a meeting and someone's read the brief far more extensively than you have. You've been on the train, you've been in meetings, you've only had time to skim it, and they pride themselves on knowing more information than their peers. But some of the most senior people I have ever known and I've ever seen have relied on other people to know information. They do not burden themselves with noise. They are only interested in what's impactful. And it's almost like a laser beam with some of these people. You'll be sat in a room, and somebody will be talking about budgets, and somebody will be talking about something else, and something else. And these people will just go, okay, what's the objective? What is that? Why are we doing that? What's the purpose? And I just think, what an amazing mindset to have. To be able to cut through noise in such in a phenomenal way. Unbelievable.
There is a great interview about this. It was released a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
You probably know about Stephen Bartlett, CEO.
Yes, Stephen Bartlett, yes.
He had Kevin O'Leary on his show.
Yes.
You know who Kevin O'Leary is?
Yes, Kevin O'Leary. He's in Trump's administration now, isn't he, I think?
No, he's not working. He's not part of the administration.
Cut
no.
that then.
That's absolutely right. He's just an investor,
yes,
business person, and he came on the show
yes,
with Stephen Bartlett, right? And he was talking about the signal versus noise.
Wow.
And also an 80-20 rule.
Yes.
He had recently found out about.
Yes.
And he talked about how he, as a person, was told by one of his partners,
yes,
that he invested in. He was told, Kevin, I think you do a lot of talking. You do 80% talking and 20% listening. Inverse those numbers.
Yep.
And since then, he said, he's just sitting at tables, listening to people talk, and he talks the least.
Yes.
He just sits there calmly.
Yes.
Like you described the tech person who was
yes,
the tech owner who was coming in.
Yes.
And just listen and hear what people have to say. And then signal versus noise, cutting through all the noise.
Yes.
And getting to the what's the objective?
Yes.
Why are we doing that? Why are we not doing this?
Yes.
It was a really cool interview.
I have to watch that.
And no, it's absolutely amazing. And I think
yes,
one of the good things about doing podcasting like this
yes,
is that you just get to sit here and listen to people's story.
yes.
So you're doing most of the talking. I'm just asking questions.
You're the 20%.
I'm trying to be the 20%. And just like you,
yes,
I'm being honest, I I like to talk. I've got loads of energy.
Yes.
At work, I love to do more talking than do the actual work.
100%.
Yeah, it's more easy. It's more fun. But yeah, no,
Yes.
just like you, I would love to somehow, not somehow, one day, to get in a place where I can collect myself and just
Yes.
sit calmly and listen, and cut through the noise and listen to the signal.
When I think about some of the most impactful meetings I've ever been in, and I have pitched, coming away from politics, talking about business development, when I think about some of the most impressive sales pitches that I've been involved with, I don't talk that much. And I think the reason why it's impactful is because if you listen to how a person talks, exactly as you've just described there, and you move away from what you want to say and what you think you need to say, and you start saying what actually matters, that 20% is actually golden. And frankly, can be more impactful than the 80% of bullshit that most people say in meetings. And political, business development, financial services, it's exactly the same. You're spot on, absolutely spot on.
That's a nice segue away from the politics and into
Yes.
finance.
Yes.
So talk to me about sales, the finance world you're part of,
Yes.
how you've got there, anything and everything.
It was an absolute accident. I feel like Britain is the only place where people fall into financial services by accident. So I left politics, and the reason why I left politics, it wasn't like I was thankfully not marred in scandal and no lockdown parties for me, just in case anyone's wondering. I left purely because I met my wife, and I think my wife is the best person on the planet. Now my son as well, and I didn't want to be here, there and everywhere whilst trying to build a family. So I went into an event services company, which is my first exposure dealing with big financial firms, some large investment banks, payment providers, and dealing with those executives at a C-level basis. So CTO, CIO, Chief Data Officer, and really the business development side of it was come to our events, learn about technology and meet our vendors. And so the sell was actually really easy because you'd get to talk to a fantastic person, a VP of IT from a large retailer, or a director of IT for Lego, for example. Although I never got to speak to their VP of IT, wish I had done. Although I'm pretty sure I chased them for a meeting quite a lot. And I would manage, from the sales perspective, everything from pipeline generation to closing the deal to actually a little bit of account management and making sure they do the things they need to do at the event. So it was a 360 sales role. And you know what? It was the best. At this point in time, I have been in politics for a long time, like almost 5 years, right? So my entire professional context is of politics and of stakeholder management in that way. Sales was like the best thing that ever happened to me because when you're working in politics, the ratio to reward to effort is really hard to see. You could be picking up a policy that someone has worked on a long time, or you could be coming up to an election trying to slam through as much policy as possible. And you don't see the fruits of your labor in the same way. In sales, I could pick up a phone and I could work really hard and I could see a tangible financial benefit right at the end. You didn't get that in politics. And so me being me, loving a challenge, loving the thrill of winning, because that's one of the things that drives me, I was absolutely obsessed with doing as many deals as possible. And I did do quite a few. And at my zenith, I was global number 4 in the company I was in. It was great. And I was a top performing salesperson and I absolutely loved it. And it was almost like a natural progression in my career, moving away, which is bizarre when I say that, because at one point I was working with government ministers and doing campaigns. The next point, I'm in an office in Bristol cold calling directors of IT and VPs of technology, but I would prefer that over that, because that was tangible and you could see the impact you were having straight away.
Drawing from the politics,
Yes.
I asked you what are some traits that would help someone get into running campaigns, being in parliament, number 10 and stuff like that. What has helped you from that world into becoming
100%.
number 4 in the company you mentioned?
100%. I think, again, it's really similar because they are competitive industries. And I'll talk a little bit about financial services a bit more in a minute, but in sales in particular, you know the value you have attributed to an organization based directly on your number. One of the first things that got said to me, which put my nose out of joint a little bit when it got said to me, but now I understand it more, is you are your number. And they weren't saying that to me to scare me. They were saying that because you can take a lot of pride in what you do when you're in sales and when you're, it's not for everyone, I'm not saying, but it's important to note that's the environment you're going into. What did I bring across from politics into sales? In politics, you're talking to really senior people all day. And in sales, you want to be talking to really senior people all day. And so understanding that really senior people in politics and really senior people in business are really similar. And what I mean by that is that politics, every 4 years, they have to justify what they've done, how they're improving themselves, and how they're building the country. Well, if you're in business, if you're a CTO and you've got private equity for 2 years, and that investor turns around to you and goes, right, okay, what have you done, Luca? How have you driven the company forward? You've got to justify that. And just like politics, these incredibly senior individuals actually needed a bit of help. And it's almost like transferring the consultative approach from the political world into the business world and going, okay, I see you have this problem. I see you have this timeline that's coming up. How can I help you with that? And just being really open with the client and going, look, okay, we can help with this, this, and this. I can't do this. And channeling that consultative approach, not just trying to flog any old shit to a prospective client, but actually making a really meaningful impact for them. And nothing is better than when a client comes back to you and goes, yes, this piece of work we did, really, really beneficial. I'm putting this in our reporting accounts, or this piece of technology, we will use it. So ruthless consulting, and then I guess stakeholder management, just like in politics, where you're managing lots of different stakeholders from lots of different departments to deliver a tech project or to deliver a financial services based project, whether it's education around a pension to rolling out an ISA. You need to have a real clear understanding of the challenge and how you're going to support. So 100% stakeholder management, because not only are you going to be managing your internal stakeholders in your firm, you're also going to be managing the stakeholders that are external within that firm. And making sure that everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet, really important.
I'm really interested because this all sounds really good.
Yes.
Things that you should do. If I don't know, I'm not a salesperson. I like to read about them, about sales. If I work in a financial industry and I am a new entry, how can I get that stakeholder management? How can I get that ruthless consultancy? How can I get that?
I would say get involved in as many projects as possible and talk to, and I don't just mean that flippantly when I say, get involved in X project, but if you are a financial services firm or an events company and you're the new sales guy, and I've been there, the likelihood is that you've got the job because you sound really you're confident, you sound credible, and you can connect with your prospective clients. But you don't really know much else because sales is so transferable. So if you're coming into financial services from, say, tech, which is what my background was, I had no idea how to pitch pension education, for example, which is something that my firm can do. So it was all about, okay, I need to read as much as possible around these areas. And there is an absolute plethora of information from Nest, from the Money and Pension Service, research around pensions from LCP, I think, and other firms that you can go away and you can read, which is really helpful. And then, so that's what, first thing, research, ruthless research, because you can't consult in something if you don't know it. And when I first started, and I was meeting with my first raft of clients, I kind of knew what a pension was. I kind of knew what financial guidance was and what advice was. Had no idea why it was important until I'd been there a little bit longer. So ruthless research to consult. And then the next thing is get involved with as many projects as possible and be an active contributor to those projects. I think when you go into financial services is an industry dominated by experts, and you can feel out of place in a lot of ways. You could be sat there and you've got market operations over here, and you've got the investment analysts and they're coming to you, or you can sit down with a pension trustee and you're like, oh wow, I have no idea what they're talking about, but yes, okay. But just talking to those people will give you such a grounding and such an understanding. And actually, I think financial services gets a bad rap because people are so willing to talk. And it is an industry based on events and an industry based on information sharing. Because if Aviva's default pension fund is doing really well, you can guarantee someone's going to try and figure out what's going on there. I think information sharing is actually is very, very prominent. And if you have questions, ask. So yeah, research and get involved in projects and expand your network. 100%.
Backtracking a bit.
Yes. Sorry, I'm all over the place.
No, that's absolutely cool. No, it's perfect. So thinking about how you get into the finance world.
Yes.
And let's look a bit at the interview bit.
Yes.
What things do I need to know to work in the finance, and how does the interview play out?
So, fantastic question. Financial services is broad. It's everything from your pension and your personal finances to cryptocurrencies and alternative investments. And I think what I have experienced in my interviews, if you're going in as a corporate, at a corporate level, to manage corporate relationships and to sell into new firms, the thing you need to know, because technical knowledge can be taught, okay? When I went into the job I'm in, I didn't have as much technical knowledge as I needed, but I was taught the technical knowledge. Now I understand, why, if you're an early investor, you should consider not being in bonds, but in stocks and shares. So for your pension investments, and why, someone in their early career who will be thinking around, getting married or having those large term payoffs are different to someone in their later career who's thinking about retirement. So that can all be taught, okay? The most important thing when you're going into these interviews that I have come across is, how do you manage stakeholders? How do you work in an environment that's always changing? At the moment, the ISA limit is £20,000 can go into the ISA and be kept free from tax. Well, returns can be kept free from tax. But Rachel Reeves can change that at a stroke of a pen. And if your proposition relies on that piece of technical back office underlay, well, actually, if that changes, you're going to have to rethink how you sell into an organization. Or if the pension age changes from whatever it is now to 74, well, actually, that's going to impact millions of people. How do they get support? So how do you deal with a changing regulatory environment? Can you handle that? And that's the question that actually most people would say, yes, I can, but we get used to doing our jobs in a particular way. I think the rhythm of going to work and understanding what we're doing is really key. And then I think that the next thing that often gets asked in interviews is, okay, you can clearly talk a good game. What do you actually know? And to use me as an example, I think financial services really is something that you fall into. Unless you are, you have done a degree in investment banking or whatever it is, and you want to go into Morgan Stanley, it's something that you really just evolves, right? And you kind of, you go from doing whatever it, like, I mean, for me, it was not a total fluke, but it was more like, okay, yeah, I'm a salesperson first, and now I work in financial services, or I'm a HR person, and now I'm dealing with my pension trustees, or I'm a CEO, and now I'm managing payments for my company, and I need to figure out how I do that. And financial services is an absolute melting pot, because you'll have people like me who've come from different industries, and you'll have, sure, I mean, okay, yeah, there are people who've done the degree and they're super switched on to finance, but I find those people are actually quite rare. You fall into it unless you've been an advisor and you've done the diploma and you're absolutely living for it. It's a melting pot.
How are you managing stress and risk? Because
Great question.
there's a lot of risk.
Personally,
There's a lot of risk in finance, and then that translates sometimes into stress, and then
Yes.
that stress you sometimes maybe take home where Mole is or when Ben is.
Sure.
So how do you handle the stress and the risk?
That's a fantastic question. I think that yes, there is risk. Yes, there is investments. Yes, you've got clients that need to be serviced and dealt with, and yes, that can be a tough job. Yes, numbers and targets are always in your mind, but I think one of the most important things that I was ever told when it came to my job is that you're more than what you do. And what I mean by that is that when you go home and you're thinking about all of the, because we all do it, we all go home, and for me it's actually in the shower. My best ideas for work come to me in the shower. Okay, no, true, whether that was politics or financial services. But it's just about separating Josh the professional from Josh the husband and the dad. And I think the way that I do that is I'll get up, I'll have a cup of tea, and then I'll go to the gym for just 20-30 minutes, and I will just switch my mind off. And once I leave the gym and I walk back into my house, I'm Josh the dad, Josh the husband. When I was not working from home, when I was working in the office, I'd just switch off during my commute, listen to something totally unrelated to work, because I think otherwise, just like anybody, your job is really, they're important to us, and we want to do good work, and we want to succeed in our workplaces, and if we're not, we think about why, and that can give you stress, but you've just got to accept that actually there are more important things than work. And I think being married and having Ben has taught me, you go home and your baby starts laughing at you, you can give a shit what people at work think, and I think that's common for everybody. Immediately the stress of the day melts away, and all you can think about is how brilliant your wife is and how brilliant your kid is.
And say, for example, you're at work
Yes.
and you've made a mistake,
Yes.
or something hasn't gone the way you wanted it to go in terms of a
Common.
exactly.
100%.
So what do you do in that situation? You don't have to give a specific, obviously, because it might be NDA or stuff.
No,
like that,
it's okay. I can give a specific.
Yeah.
One time we lost. This was before I was in the firm. Now I was pitching for a firm to come on. It was an S&P 500 C-level person that we were going to get on, and it was really, really needed. And I remember that we didn't get them, and I was furious. Not because we didn't win them, but because I was leading a team at that point, and the team needed me to show up, and I couldn't get this person over the line. And I think in those moments when you are really aware that your team is relying on you and you couldn't make it happen, that's the moment when you think, right, this has annoyed me now. And in that moment, I had to get up, step away from my desk, have a coffee, go, make light with a colleague. And the reason why I did that was because I always ask myself the question, okay, this situation has happened. what can I control in this moment? I couldn't control this C-level person saying no. I couldn't control the fact that my team was still down, I think, 3 or 4 deals. I couldn't control that. What I could control is my response to the scenario. And that was getting up, stepping away from the laptop, having a moment, having a coffee, coming back and going, okay, we go again. And I think it's one of the most important things, because I think I see it more and more now, because I think every workplace is being asked to do more with less. And you can feel like you're in a bit of a pressure cooker. But giving yourself a little bit of grace and giving yourself a little bit of time, and just a little bit of, actually, do you know what? You've done a good job here. Yes, this hasn't gone your way. It's okay, we can try again. And once you adopt that mindset, I think that's helpful. Another thing I would say is, when I've watched senior people deal with difficult situations, I've never seen, I think about, have you ever given your manager bad news?
No.
Okay. I remember one time I had to give my manager some bad news. And it was about a client. And my boss was fantastic, because news that would have fazed me did not faze him. And I went up to him and I said, look, so this has happened, and there's this issue, and I don't think we're going to get this. And his response was, okay, we tried our best. This is okay. Let's let stakeholders know, and we'll move on to the next one. And I just thought to myself, shit, if I had heard that news, would I have responded in that way? Would I have been so, not flippant, because he wasn't flippant, but would I have just gone, do you know what, we did our best, let's move on? And this person is 3-4 levels above me. And for him to just go, okay, this has happened, it's all right, we'll move on, we'll go to the next one. I just thought to myself, do you know what? Senior people are not, it comes back to cutting through signal and noise. The noise was, we're not going to win this client. The signal is, we can control winning the next one, and focus on that.
Absolutely amazing advice there.
Do you know, it's one of, thank you so much. It's one of the things that has stuck with me through my career. What do you focus on? Oh no, shit, we've lost this client, what are we going to do? On to the next. Cut through the shit. We'll do this. And it stuck with me. And I, now, when bad news does come, I don't focus on the bad news. Let's solve the problem.
Let's solve the problem. Great advice again. Thinking about all the, off the back of the advice and the words of the person in charge who said, okay, let's go get the next one. Again, you've met with some very powerful people. You've met with some really wealthy people in finance as well. Earlier I asked you a question about what sort of patterns, good patterns you took away from them.
Yes.
Is there anything from finance that you've taken away that has helped in your personal life?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think one of the best things about financial services and being exposed to financial services is auto-enrollment. We all have a pension, right? And we're all managing, planning for the future. It doesn't matter whether you're 28, you've just had a baby, you're buying a house, or you're 44 and you're in that mid-career bracket, and you're thinking about, maybe you've got kids that are they're old enough to leave home but they haven't yet, and you've got elderly parents and you're feeling a bit squeezed. We all manage money. And what I've learnt in my job has translated directly into how I manage my own finances, and how I perceive my own future, and how I go, okay, I shouldn't be opting out of my pension. I should be putting it in, and I should be figuring out what I'm in, whether it's bonds or stocks and shares or whatever. And okay, right, what should I be in? I now have knowledge that I did not have before. And me and Molly always laugh, because we were over in Northern Ireland and we were talking to some of Molly's friends, and we're talking about investing. And I said, okay, so well, what are you investing in? And they were talking to me about it, and we were getting really excited because we were looking. I think it was at Tesla's share price because one of Molly's friends had put in, I think it was something like, I can't remember the number, but she bought these Tesla shares a really long time ago, and we were talking about what the stock market has done and the increase, and I realized that actually people think that financial services is really complicated. I did before, but actually, if you've got a mobile phone and you've got a banking app, you're basically halfway to being able to manage everything from investments to your pension. And it's crazy how much more accessible it is. So that's what it's taught me. And also, I think being able, the reassurance of knowing the reassurance of knowing why knowing about finance is important has been profoundly helpful. And knowing how to manage money in a smarter way has been profoundly useful. And that's what I've taken away from my personal life. And also, as you've already alluded to, looking at how a millionaire manages their money. Crazy. The fact that when I was, I'm old enough now, and you meet with these incredibly senior people, and they are so well off because they have made such smart financial decisions, and you just think, oh, you don't want to be envious of anyone ever, right? You just think you've done so well, you are so intelligent. Yeah, 100%.
I feel what you're saying. Yeah, sometimes you look at it and you're like, oh my God, I envy you. Like, you're in the position I would like to be in.
Yeah, 100%.
How do I get there?
yeah, 100%. And I think it comes back to educating yourself. And I think some people, they look at finance, they look at numbers, and they think, oh, I'm really scared of numbers, I don't want to do that. Or some people will say, where do I start with investing? Well, the great news is if you've got a pension, and it's if you're our age, it's probably a defined contribution pension, you're already investing. And most people don't realize that their pension is an investment product. And they kind of flippantly go, oh, well, I don't really want to know anything about this. And so rather than just kind of forgetting about it, do some education, build yourself up. One of the most intelligent people I've ever met, and he means so much to me. He was one of the people that introduced me to like cryptocurrencies, and I'm not advocating or not advocating for investing for going out and buying cryptocurrency, but he was one of those people who saw Bitcoin when it was lower than what it is now. And when Trump came in and the Bitcoin had its bump, he had a serious increase in his holding. And I was like, wow, okay, fair play, you know what you're doing. And this is, he was someone who has educated himself on investments. He's educated himself on products. And I always think of him as a golden example of how to educate him. He educated himself on all of these things. And he went, okay, I'm going to invest in this, this, and this. And now he's seen, I think he's seen a sizable return. I think, wow, fair play. And I always think, he is years younger than me. If I'd been that intelligent, then I would have been great. But, it's all about educating yourself and, having an open mind to investing. I think the way we think about risk is, and this is just personal opinion, but how, we look at something and we think, I don't want to invest in stocks and shares because I might lose all my money. And I think, well, okay, fine, fair enough, but you're not at the rate of which, inflation is rising. Okay, you can be saving money, that's fantastic, but you're not getting a return. That spending power of that £100 or whatever it is will be less next year than it was this year. So, there's a risk argument to be made for just keeping money in the bank and not doing anything with it.
Yeah,
this is not financial advice, by the way. You manage your money how you think you should.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely something there where we perceive risk as something that's not good.
Yes.
But then when you look at own life, you look at it very subjectively.
Yes.
And you don't perceive the risk of, say, if you leave your money there, what's actually going to happen? You're not asking the hard questions.
Yes.
And you don't see the actual risk.
Absolutely.
Until someone comes in and says to you, well, this is going to happen.
Yes.
And even then, they might even believe it. How are you investing in yourself?
Oh, I invest in a couple of things. The most interesting thing I have come across for me is there is a cryptocurrency called XRP, which I think is the utility of it, the 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 weight that it could have in financial services is incredible. If you think about the friction of payments and money moving from escrow accounts and all this kind of thing, I think it is absolutely fascinating. And I'm exposed. How do I put this in a diplomatic way? I'm exposed to XRP, but at the same time, I have other investments. So we have an ISA, I have a pension, and that's just an employee pension with my firm, and lots of other things. And of course, I have a general savings account as well, just for those short-term knocks kind of things, bills on a car, that kind of thing. Basically, I try really hard to manage household finances like a business. So you have your cash pot over here, you have your investments over here, you have your pension and your longer term objectives over there, and I try to keep on top of everything. But once you've set up your investments and you've done the, I don't know, 2-3 hours on a Saturday to make sure everything's ticking over and looking good, once it's set up, it basically just does it for you, and it's all good. So exposed to a lot of different things.
How are you investing in yourself, though?
Oh, great question. I think since becoming a dad, that's been the biggest learning curve that I've had as a person, and I think the time that I get to spend with my wife and my son is superb. I think in a personal sense. As a professional, relentlessly learning. So, as I say, I mean, I am not a financial services native. I am very new to financial services. I've been in financial services for around 2.5, 3 years, and I think I would love one day, and this isn't necessarily today, but I'd love to do my RO1 and RO2 exams, which would give me a much more grounded understanding of the legal side of financial planning and the pension side of financial planning. So that would be my next steps for professional development, just because I think that the pension bill, and I think that the scope of financial services is at a real tipping point. I think that we have changes coming into pensions. We have changes coming into potentially ISAs, although that's not confirmed. We have America fundamentally transforming the way that it thinks about money, and at what rate digital assets will change that. And I think there is so much change within financial services that just staying on top of that and trying to have a really grounded understanding of it and be able to talk through it like we have been, that is learning enough at the moment, for sure.
And thorough research.
Thorough research. If there's one thing I would say to anyone before they're investing in anything, before they are looking into pensions or researching, speak to an advisor, and speak to a qualified professional. I think some of the worst financial decisions are made by people who go off advice from a professional that isn't in financial services. Or, Bill down the pub said that buying Nvidia stock was a good idea. Nvidia stock is currently at its all-time high. It is not a good time to buy Nvidia. Not financial advice, just an observation. So, yeah, go out, do your research, understand, what it is you believe in. Should you be someone exposed to high-risk funds? Should you be someone who actually you're more middle of the road kind of thing, and just have a really good understanding of what you believe and what you want your money to do for you, and seek qualified support if you are, thinking of dealing with a large sum of money, and you're thinking about what to do because you don't want it to just be sat in a savings account losing spending power, and you want to invest and expose yourself to the markets. Best way to do that: speak to a qualified financial advisor, because those guys are genuinely amazing. I've met some advisors, and honestly, you know, their knowledge makes mine look like kindergarten level. So 100%, you know, get qualified support.
Get qualified support. Well, thank you for that. Now we've looked at your jobs. We've
Yes.
looked at politics. We've looked at finance. We've looked at how you have seen people around you, how their patterns and things you've learned from them. Now, finally, what I would like to know is about is your future.
Okay.
So the question I have for you is, what do you foresee in your future? Is there anything you would like to happen?
Yes.
Is there anything you're running towards
Yeah.
or preparing to run towards?
Oh, that is a fantastic question. I think at the moment it's a really interesting place, because I feel like I've done quite a lot for someone who's 28 years old. And maybe, you know, and I'm sure all of your guests have, and all of your guests have said probably similar. I would love to remain in financial services and remain as a consulting salesperson. I think that for me, I think that is probably, it's the most fun I've ever had in a job. I think that I get the fun of sales and the fun of you know, winning business and supporting businesses, but also the knowledge required to be in financial services is fantastic. I like to be challenged both in terms of my performance, but also in terms of building up my own personal knowledge. So I'd love to increase my knowledge. Somebody asked me the other day, do you want to be a financial advisor? And I kind of thought, oh yeah, I do. So maybe going down that road, but also client relationships. I absolutely love building relationships with all of my clients, and having a really deep understanding of the challenges that I've helped them solve. So I think a mix is what I would say for my future career, probably of financial services and client relationships. And to be honest, you know, I mean, I think what somebody I once spoke to, who was a very, very intelligent guy, he was somebody who was a personal mentor, and he said to me, he said, you should have a list of the firms you should want to work for. And I went away and I made a list. I won't tell you who's on the list, because, you know, I'll keep that quiet. Maybe I'll come back again and we'll talk about that. But I think I would love to get to one of the top 5 firms on my list, but before I'm 35. That's what I would love to do. And yeah, I've got a colleague, and he's already there, and I'd love to join him there, because for what he's described to me, it sounds awesome.
Tell me this: 5 years from now,
Yes.
you will have been in every single one of those top 5 you have on your list.
Yes.
Do you see yourself managing those relationships you've mentioned about, and being a financial advisor? Do you see yourself being in a company where you work for someone, or do you see yourself, once you've done that top 5, moving towards
100%. Do
your
you know,
own?
I think if I could jump back in time and I could talk to my younger self, and I know we've talked about this before, and I could say to my younger self, go out on your own and have a go, I absolutely would. Will I have a go? I think I will. I think that at some point in all of us, there is this entrepreneurial drive in everyone that's in work, and even not necessarily in work, where they have a fantastic idea and they are determined to make it happen. And I think I would love one day to go out and be like a consultant or a really trusted advisor in the space, somebody who businesses trust to help them run the business. And I think that'd be great. I would love to do that. Certainly from a PR and marketing and sales perspective, I think that'd be amazing. I would love to do that. So I'd love to give it a go. Whether or not life allows for that is another discussion. And, you know, I know that there's definitely pros and cons, but Yeah, I'd love to give it a go.
And if you do, I think you'll be mega successful.
You are too kind, Luke.
The things, when you and I first met and started talking, the things you've done
Yeah.
in the amount of time you've done them, you're only 28 and you've been part of 2 different major sectors, major industries, politics and finance, and you've successfully conquered them. You're a top salesperson and you are really good at your job to the point where you're in number 10.
You're too kind.
I think, I want to say you will get there. I hope you get there. Your future looks bright.
You are too kind, Luke. You're far too kind. I think I've been really blessed with fantastic people around me, my wife in particular, and great relationships that have made me the person and the individual I am.
Absolutely, and the fact, talking about risk and stress, the fact that you've handled moving away from politics into finance, in the middle of all this, found your partner, got married, and have had a baby. It's like, do you hear what I'm saying? It's crazy, and just
It's
goes
been
to
great fun.
you're gonna. I think you're gonna have
God's
a
been
successful.
very good.
Glad,
God's been
glad
very
for
good.
that. Before we wrap up, I have something to give you.
Okay.
But before we wrap up, do you have any questions for me?
Do you know what? I'd love to know what gave you the drive to start doing this and start to talk to people like me. I'd love to know.
Absolutely. So I had the idea of doing this podcast about a year and a half ago.
Yes.
I was still at university and I was in my room thinking, oh, it would be quite cool to like do a podcast. Why? I love podcasts. As I've told you, I think before, I listened to a couple of them. Stephen Barnett, Diary of a CEO was one of them. PBD podcast, American podcast,
Yes.
really cool about business and politics. And I realized the idea of podcasting is you get to talk with people.
Yeah.
And now I'm in a position where, frankly, all of my friends have gone away from Bath. They've moved back to London and other places. So most of my friends are not here. And it's really interesting because once they moved away, I didn't really have time. Well, I had loads of time. I just didn't have anyone to like spend it with.
Yes.
So I was thinking, well, let's go back to the idea and doing the podcast, because you get to like talk with interesting people like yourselves, and you get to learn and first learn about themselves, learn about the industries they are working in,
Yes.
get their perspectives on different things, and try to get advice from people they've worked with. Like the advice you've given me about the tech CEO who was walking in the room and just quietly walking down and composing themselves, and that's perfect. And then the financial industry of how you just own the mistakes and you don't dwell on what has already happened, and just focus on the next objective, because that's what you can control next.
100%.
It's perfect. So yeah, I think going back to your question, talking with people, I love talking with people. I love to find out about them, and it's just fun at the end of the day.
I think it's a great idea. When we were in the gym talking about it, I thought it was a great idea. I did not need any convincing. I think it's superb, absolutely superb.
Nice. Well, thank you for that. Now, I've got something for you,
Okay.
and Molly as well.
That's very good.
Now, when you hold them, now it's been very warm outside. These are 2
Okay.
chocolate bars.
Oh, wow.
They are quite melted at this point,
No,
but
that's okay.
if you put them in the fridge for like 10, 15, 20 minutes, they'll be fine. So
Thank you
this
very
chocolate
much.
bars,
Yes.
so I'm from Romania,
Yes.
and I discovered these 2 chocolate bars there.
Yes.
I just discovered them in Romania, and they are my favorite chocolate bars ever.
Okay.
They're not Romanian. I think you can find them in Hungary. I found them in Bulgaria as well. They are my most favorite chocolate
Wow.
bars.
I like dark chocolate too.
Nice.
This
And
should be good.
Exactly. And when you're a kid and you're like eating a chocolate bar.
Yes.
I was thinking to myself, you know what? This chocolate bar does not have enough chocolate. You know what?
This has got enough.
I think it's got enough.
Joe, thank you very much. That is incredibly kind. And the fact that I've got with my wife as well, she'll be over the moon. She loves chocolate. And Joe, she's just said to me, she said, oh, Joe, I really want to eat more dark chocolate. We were eating Tony's. So much Tony's has gone through our house recently. So this will be really, really good. Thank you very much. This is very, very kind of you.
Absolutely, Josh. Well, thank you so much again.
No, listen, anytime. Pleasure to do it.
Cheers.